Greetings companies, greetings to you all. Welcome to our webinar today on online in China. We're delighted that you could join us and to talk about the online environment in China, about social media, about how to engage with companies and prospects in China. So this is a we really appreciate the time that you take today. We realize that everyone's feeling all webinared and zoomed out. So we really appreciate that you're here together with us to talk about online in China today. So just while the last of you are logging on, just to let you know, for this webinar will last about 45 minutes. We've allowed time at the end for Q&A. So do please pop your questions into the Q&A, the chat box, and we'll get to the questions at the end. That would be a real delight to have your questions and feedback. We'll have a few polls during the webinar as well, just 3 little polls to ask you some questions about responses and where you're looking at in China. You'll all be muted during the webinar, but as I said, we'd love to have your feedback and any questions you might have as well. There will be a little infographic as well that you can reach out for as a handout. And after the webinar, there's a very, very brief survey. We'd really appreciate, it's like a minute long, less than a minute long, so we'd really appreciate if you could answer that for us. So I think we should probably start with introductions. How about that? So my name is Susanna, and I'm Chief Content Officer at IBT Online. As I said, a real pleasure to be with you today. I am absolutely delighted to be joined by my colleague Fiona Chan, who is an online marketing manager at IBT Online, and Fiona is a tremendous knowledge of social media, of strategies, markets, of analyzing, of all things digital and online for social media in particular. So she'll be helping us out on that when we get down, drill down into that a bit later. I think also just a very, very quick word on who we are as a company. What is IBT Online? IBT Online, IBT actually stands for International Business and Technology. I think it is International Business and Technology Online. So we've been around for quite a while, since 2002. We're a US company, but we have subsidiaries elsewhere. Both Fiona and I are actually sitting in the UK at the moment. And it is our great delight to work with exporters, companies who are looking to go international. And we provide online tools. That's basically websites and online marketing to grow their business internationally. And we'll talk a little bit later about some of the programs we've put in place with US states, which actually has grant money behind and could be of interest, we hope, to some of you. So that's us. Now let's see what we have for an agenda today. So we thought we'd start out with, we've split up into 5. We thought we'd start out with talking about China online in a general sense, because it's quite a specific market, very, very distinct from other online markets. And then we're going to sort of highlight some of the key characters we call BAT. That's for Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent. And then some of the big players in the market that you're going to have to get familiar with. Then Fiona's going to talk us through some aspects of how to get more brand awareness, how to drive lead generation, brand awareness to your website and to any social media that you're doing. We're going to look at some strategies that other companies have used, particularly US companies have gone to China and looked around and used online tools to build brand awareness. And then finally looking at what we call a helping hand. There's some online global programs, grants, and as I said afterwards, some Q&A. And we would really like to see some Q&A from you guys. We've got our first Q&A. We have our first question. Yes, you will all get a recording of this webinar at the end of the, I think it's in a day or so, you'll get a recording of the webinar in your inbox. So that if you don't see it in your inbox, please do check your spam. Sometimes it goes to spam. So let's start. Why China online? And what does the online environment mean in China? What is that as an environment? I think the first thing to say about it is that it's large. So there's 1.4 billion people in China. What's really interesting to see is that 60% of them, 60% are online. That's over 850 million people. And what I think is really interesting is that there are more mobile phone connections than there are people, and that there are more social media users, active users, than there are internet connections, internet users. So in other words, many people have several social media applications and profiles that they're using. And we'll come back to this as well later. But it does show you some sort of, some of the big pictures here on this. 850 million people online in China. That's nearly 3 times the size of the population of the US. And as I said, mobile phones with, equally more than the total population shows you how important the mobile environment is. And this is actually an environment that's still growing. I mean, mobile phone connections grew by 4.3% last year, for example. Another 25 million people joined the internet for the first time ever in 2019. And even social media, which we saw is even bigger than the internet users, continues to grow at a good pace. Another 15 million people accessed new social media platforms in China last year. So a very, very dominant mobile and very active mobile environment, huge mobile phone connections, huge social media. And we'll come back to this again and again, how that means you need to be proactive on that and how that impacts your strategies. So just on sort of one slide, if I could get some of the specifics first of this. So we talk about a mobile first market. And what does that mean? It means that people have very often discovered or go on the internet via their mobile phones, even more than a desktop computer. So they then use their mobile phone in a different way, and they use the internet in a different way. Mobile first environments tend to be very dynamic and very fast evolving. When it's fast evolving, it means also disruptive. Excuse me, disruptive, and a lot of apps. Excuse me. Sorry. A lot of apps, and I can give you a good example of this actually. Uber, when it launched in China, found that the uptake was faster than in the US. And they found very quickly that their top 3 markets, their top 3 cities were in fact in China. Within no time at all, they were larger in China than the States in some cities. The next really is that because there's a very strong model of commercial model, we'll see this when we talk about WeChat, it means that content has to be very personalized, very, very relevant. It's a very, very competitive market. And equally, because credit cards are not widely used, you use digital payments on your phone even more. Therefore, the whole sort of blending together of mobile, social media, e-commerce, all in sort of one various platforms like WeChat, for example, means that you have a very, very dynamic environment on these platforms. So you're looking at mobile first. Here's just a sort of slide which shows you. I mean, there's a lot of information on that graph. I mean, you can see sort of mobile commerce. The graph here just shows you m-commerce, as it's called, mobile commerce, e-commerce on your mobile phone, in other words. The global average for mobile m-commerce is about 35%. In China, it's 74%. So 74% of e-commerce is actually also being done through mobile phones. The equivalent in the United States is 46%. So there you go. 97% of internet access is via the mobile phone. So, this, just to give you an example of how mobile is predominant and how strong that is in all aspects. I mean, if you think that m-commerce as a total share of e-commerce is 74%, that really does mean that people are looking on their phone and engaging with it at all times for that. One of the aspects about this as well is that people order a very wide range of objects on their e-commerce. For e-commerce, for example, in the United States, you'll find it's dominated by clothes, electronics, food, luxury goods, and used to be travel, but not so much anymore. And in China, the spread of what is ordered online is much wider and used, I'd say, in B2B even more so than in the United States. Mobile first also depends on internet connections, and the Chinese government has made internet connections and the speed of internet connections a big priority in the last few years, so that the speed is now, the upload and download speed is now worth looking at and engaging with, and is something that is competitive. China's social media behavior equally is very dynamic. So we talked about it's absolutely huge, and obviously these numbers here on this graph, can demonstrate that. So not only is social media used for personal things like chatting with friends and engaging with and keeping in touch with people, sharing fun memes and things, but also for work. And I think that this is a very strong graph here. 45% of internet users use social media for work. In the States, it's more like 21% use social media actively for work purposes. Equally, the average hours per day spent using social media, 2.5 hours or 2.2 hours. In the States, it's more like just under 2 hours. So again, really a very strong use of social media for work as well as for everyday use as well. So we're all very connected in China, very social media, very much telephone as well. Some of the biggest social media platforms in China, you have a long list here. You'll see that I always think it's funny because LinkedIn just sticks out there like quite a revelation amongst all these other very China-centric names. But of the percentage of internet users, 78% or 80% use WeChat. So that's really the dominant one. But then, it really goes quite far. Most people will have several different social media platforms that they're very active on. I guess the biggest takeaway from this as well is that it's very, very China-centric. So, if you're in China, you have to use the Chinese-centric platforms, the Chinese search engines, the Chinese social media chat forums, the Chinese payments. It's all China-centric. And we're going to talk about that right now. But before we do, I'm going to launch a quick poll. Give me a chance to have a cup of tea as well. Are you already doing business in China? If so, do you have an in-market partner? And that can even be an own subsidiary. Are you online already? Are you online only? Are you still thinking about it? And that's why you're attending this webinar, maybe. But it's really, I'm going to give you some responses. I can give you some responses already. A tiny percentage of you are online only. A lot of you have an in-market partner, but not yet online. And that's really interesting. We're very, very happy that you're here today, and we do hope that this webinar gives you some good responses and clues about that. And then a few of you are in market with a partner and online. So that's terrific. Well done, you. So close the poll now, and let's talk now about what we call BAT, the BAT, and WeChat and the other big players in the China market and who those are. So I'm going to start off with Baidu. And it's fun as well, because when we're talking about all these, it almost sounds a bit like some Silicon Valley thing. I mean, Robin Li, CEO and the co-founder of Baidu, he started this in his garage, virtually looking at graduate students and employing graduate students to try and work out the algorithms. Baidu is now China's dominant search engine, and has about a sort of 76% market share in China. I think the Baidu has since enlarged quite a bit what it does. It's deeply into AI, robotics, all kinds of investments that it's gone into. It's invested in a lot of other companies as well. It does hosting, news services, and so on. But I think one of the biggest things to remember about Baidu is that the algorithm of Baidu differs from that of Google. And we'll get down into that more later. But the point about Baidu is that the way it ranks companies is different. And this notion of organic search and keywords, it's much less the case than for example, a Google. Also, you have to be sort of approved, accredited by Baidu. And again, we'll talk about that a bit later when we talk about social media. But it means that Baidu will, if you get a localized website, if you have a website in China, then you submit it to Baidu and say, is this okay? And Baidu will say either a yes or a no. And they'll say, we want that to happen. We want this to happen. Make sure you don't have any backlinks. Make sure you have this hosting. If, for example, Baidu really only accepts you if you're hosted locally. And so you need to be hosted in China. So a lot comes in then when you're looking at these localized websites for China. The next big player that I wanted to mention is Alibaba. I'm sure many of you have heard from them already. China's absolutely dominant e-commerce group. It's spread well beyond China's walls and has now, a dominant player in much of Asia, but is present as well in the U.S. and Europe and everywhere else as well. It really is a huge company for this. And again, founded by and co-founded by some individuals. Jack Ma, famously an English teacher. He actually, I think he's worth something like $40 billion. I mean, these are all sort of billionaires. Again, making them sound more and more like Silicon Valley guys. And then recently, Jack Ma even announced that he was going to dedicate more time to philanthropy. And Alibaba also started Singles Day. Singles Day comes from the date is the 11th of November, so that's 1111, so it means it's Singles Day. And it started really as a thing for university students and has now grown to be this massive B2C event in the world. Singles Day, one single day, eclipses Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Thanksgiving weekend by a factor of 2. It's absolutely enormous as a B2C, as a consumer event. Just to give you some numbers as well, I mean, Amazon ships something like 3 billion packages a day. Alibaba ships 12 million packages a day. So Amazon, 3 million packages a day, Alibaba, 12 million packages a day. So that gives you a size, an indication as well of the absolute size of Alibaba. And again, kind of like Baidu, Alibaba has also gone into a lot of different avenues. For example, digital entertainment, holding companies, batteries, hosting as well, and things. But one of the big things they did as well was to promote their services as a platform for non-Chinese companies to come on and to get into China. That's actually how Alibaba actually first started. And there's a lot of ways for example, U.S. companies, if you're looking to get into China and say, well, that looks easy. Maybe I'll just, go on to Alibaba and we can do business then. And Alibaba does give you the ability to be on their platform, and they will take a lot of that headache away, as do the other big e-commerce platforms for things. And they even have ones that are absolutely dedicated to B2B. For that. So, I put that up on the slide now. And they're keen to promote those services very much going forward. A little word of warning, however, when you're looking at JD.com or Alibaba or 1688 or all the other big e-commerce platforms, and it looks like an easy entrance way. These things, however, in China on the e-commerce platforms, they're not cheap, and they're not actually as easy as they look. you still may need a registered company to do it. Chinese buyers will expect you, especially B2B buyers, will expect you to have 24/7 service as well in place. You'll need in-market logistic platforms, and if Alibaba's doing it, it can be really expensive. Alibaba as well, like the other ones, charge commission, which can be high. The lowest I've seen is 2%. Some of the highest is 8%. There's a fixed amount you need to pay in the beginning. That could be $5,000, it could be $10,000, $15,000 per year as sort of like a guarantee. The marketing spend that you have to spend is dictated by the company, and you can only really do it via a platform. So there's some constraints there. So before you latch on to those what looks like an easy way of getting into the China market, beware, read the fine print, particularly, and remember that with any platform, if you're looking to build brand awareness, what you're really doing on those platforms is building the awareness of their brand. So who really benefits out of you going on to Alibaba is Alibaba. Similar to an argument you would have about Amazon. So there you go. That's sort of some of the big issues on e-commerce. We can certainly answer some questions on that if you have an interest. Now, Tencent is another one of these huge. It's the BAT, so that's the T of the BAT trio, and again, co-founded by a very sort of a charismatic guy, like Pony Ma. Today, I believe it's China's most valuable company. It's been quoted since 2004, and I believe, he's also worth something like $50 billion as well. They really developed. It's really a conglomerate of internet assets. And I guess one of the jewels in the crown is WeChat, which we'll talk about. But there's a whole notion of sort of this instant messaging service with QQ, and then social media networking app, Qzone and things. But then they develop payments, a lot of news. They're also one of the largest online gaming companies in the world. A lot of the biggest names you'll ever know in gaming are actually owned by Tencent. And they've really grown their assets and their sales a lot, and continue to see good growth. Plus 25% revenue, plus 62% in revenue in 2019, and so on. So they're a very strong growth company. Early the numbers for 2020, by the way, showed something like an increase of 26% in the first quarter of this year. They have also, like many conglomerates, they have a sort of little portfolio. So they are major investors in, as I said, cloud services, AI, and so on. But they also own a significant stake of things like Tesla, and so on. So there you go. That's another one to look at and have. I'll try and see if I can close this window. Hold on. There you go. And just, as I said, I guess one of the jewels in the crown is WeChat. And this is a company which was founded by Tencent in 2004 and really is now sort of a bit of a proxy for the internet almost. It does everything for Chinese users. People sometimes compare it to like a Facebook. It's so much more. It's really, really important to understand WeChat and how Chinese consumers and Chinese businesses use it. And Fiona will dig down deeper into using WeChat for brand awareness and growth. But I think it's interesting just to note that the 7 years that it's been in existence, it has really gained this dominant position. With 80% of internet users using it, and really it's designed to have to impact every aspect of your life, social, financial, health, entertainment, your taxes, everything. So it's kind of like a PayPal plus a Facebook plus a Uber, Amazon, Spotify, all mixed in one, if you can imagine that. It's really designed to, I guess, build a mobile lifestyle for Chinese consumers and for businesses. And the important point to note about WeChat is that in a sense it's a closed environment. And again, Fiona will go into more depth about this, but you know, for non-Chinese, for let's say for an American, if you say, okay, I want to target someone and spend some money on my social media, so I'll do a Facebook ad and I'll pay to pop up on somebody's Facebook page, and suddenly, you know, I'm looking at my Facebook page and I get an advertisement for, you know, whatever it is. You can't do that in WeChat. WeChat is guards the privacy much more. It's a circle. You have to be invited in, and Fiona will elaborate a bit on that. You know, for that. So, but I wanted to show you as well sort of an image of what it would look like, for example, on my phone with a WeChat wallet. So WeChat wallet, you know, there's lots of things I can do on it. So who needs a bank account? Who needs a bank card? Who needs credit cards? I can see my balance, the different cards I have. I can do quick pays. I can do red packets, which is for celebrations. I can do something called Go Dutch, which when I split a bill. I can, if my money gets saved there. I can pay my bills, everything. I can pay my parking fine all from my WeChat account. So it really is this, as I said, a proxy for the online in China. And with that, I think I'm going to turn now to Fiona and talk about brand awareness and social media a bit more in depth. Fiona?
Thank you, Susanna. So hi, everybody. Great to be here and talk about the brand awareness in China. So once you build a local Chinese website, then the challenge is to get it noticed. So Baidu search engine marketing is a great place to start your paid advertising on the search engine in China, as Baidu doesn't really do organic search, in other words, free traffic. It responds better to getting paid. So the Baidu works similar to Google Ads, where you can have search and display ads. The cost per clicks is also based on the market bits, namely on supply and demand. But the way that you set it up is very different from Google Ads. So you need to pay a deposit as an administrative fee, upload your Chinese business license, and of course include a Chinese phone number as the main contact. So needless to say, there are a lot of Chinese internet policy paperwork involved in the Baidu account setting up. So there are so many more different differences compared to the Google Ads that we are quite familiar with in the United States market. So Baidu has a range of products that you can use, such as the very specific areas just to promote your brand called Brand Zone. It can be quite expensive, but worth thinking about it for your branding strategy. So there is also something called the Baidu Knowledge. It's a free resource like a forum and a bit like the Yahoo Q&A. So anyone can ask a question and you can participate in answering that. It's one of the few ways that can get a free brand awareness, considering Baidu is quite heavily dependent on paid advertising. So there is also the Baidu information feed ads, where you can place ads that are displayed in a content-driven Baidu products like the Baidu News. Just like the Google ads, you should measure and calculate the performance of your campaigns to conduct further optimization to get a very good returns. So to go deeper into Baidu advertising, as we have said that before, Baidu's really depend on the pay-per-click advertising to get your brand noticed. So it's really important to get your keywords right. In other words, do not use Google Translate. Put it this way, if you have the wrong words, you will be paying Baidu with each wrong click for nothing. So the keywords need to be localized and culturally correct. By culturally correct, I mean, like for example, as you can see that on the screen, the formal writing of the word handbag in simplified Chinese is shown at the left side. is different from the writing that people prefer to use on the search engine on Baidu, like on the right side. So it's really critical to get the wording right for your Baidu ads. And when it comes to writing a target ad copies, Baidu let you highlight the keywords that you would like the audience to look at a first glance. Those words appear in red among the content of your ads, as shown down below there. Beside that, Baidu offers a location matching symbol, which is an automated function that allows the location-specific word in the ad copies to be changed to the correct location according to the whereabouts of the audiences. So you don't need to have extra keywords and ad copies for each individual location. And this can make sure the coverage is high. And of course, this saves time creating extra creative and ads for every single location that you want to target to. And because of the unique internet environment in China, you need to be very careful that some words and phrases are not allowed to use. For example, like best, number one, exclusive, guarantee, and etc. And as we have mentioned in the previous slides, the cost per click depend on market bids, and it also varies from city to city as well. And of course, first line cities like Beijing and Shanghai would definitely be more expensive than the second and third line cities in China. So it's really important to understand your own personal the buyer persona, including their geographic location. Other than that, other than Baidu ads, one of the fastest way to build brand awareness in China, particularly for B2B companies, is to use Sino Weibo. So people people often compare Weibo to Twitter, but from an online marketing perspective, Weibo is more like Facebook. So Weibo let you post content to specific target audience in China. So it gives you access to different audience base to grow page like and create some social buzz to drive traffic to your website. This is the main reason why Chinese businesses use Weibo for their online marketing and why some savvy non-Chinese company are joining in. So Weibo has different tools to get your content in front of your target audiences like 粉丝通, 粉丝头条, and many more. And they can all be used for different purposes and objectives. It really depends on your KPIs. And Weibo being an open platform, it allows company to push content in front of target audiences, meaning that company don't have brand recognition in China can get in front of their potential prospect as well. So to create great content that the audience engage with is the key. So you really have to know what your Chinese audience is concerned with, what is trending, and who are they looking to as opinion leaders. So we have briefly talked about what Weibo is, then it comes to a more practical part, how to use Weibo. So there are two types of account, personal and company account. For the company account, you will need a business license and to sign lots of Chinese internet paperwork, just like Baidu. And by the way, this account need to be renewed annually. So every year you need to upload these things again. But if you get kind of it, it doesn't take too long. The good news is you don't need to be a Chinese registered company here. You can use a United States business license, for example. So once you're verified, you get this magical blue V sign there, as you can see from the image. So the blue V sign will be shown next to your account. This means that the Chinese audience will trust you as a legitimate company. So it's really important for your brand and reputation. And with this blue V sign, you can now set up a Weibo advertising account. You have to pay a deposit of about $800. Then it works very similar to Facebook advertising, just with a slightly different targeting options. So the goal of your social media strategy in China is to get onto WeChat, but it's not as easy as it sounds. So WeChat is not like Facebook where you just pay to be seen by your audiences. The way WeChat work is to share and access information with your accepted friends. So it's more like a private communication circle of friends. So in WeChat, you have to be invited in. So your audience has to already know you. So that's why Weibo and the Baidu search marketing are also important to get that first awareness in the market. So once you have that, you can start targeting your WeChat strategy. There are several types of accounts you can have in WeChat. So a moment, for example, is a bit like Twitter account. That's where you might put your own status, for example, like this is what I'm liking at the moment, and these are the brands I like, but it only gets shared with your direct friends. And there are sponsored moments. The example here is for the BMW. As you can see, that is an image and a short caption with a very tiny sponsored button in the top right corner of that. As the BMW moment says sponsor on it, you know that it has not been shared by your friends. But if you're interested, then you can click the details and get directly to the BMW Chinese website. But if you're not interested, then you can also turn off the ad and BMW cannot reach you again. Is really worth noticing that these sponsored moments can be really expensive. The price for an ad can be anything from $10,000 to $1 million for one ad. So it's quite expensive. So you need to put a note there if you really want to get into that sponsored moment. But the most prized account is called an official account, like subscription, that sit on a WeChat users friend list. So you can think of it like more like a private circle of friends. So clicking on it, the users get content from companies. Here in the Tesla case, there are 3 tabs. As you can see from the circle there, it translates to change the world, trial and purchase, and your experience. It helps the users to have more like an all-around feel of its products. So under the trial tab, you can learn more about Tesla's newest models and even place an order on its website through WeChat. So it comes to videos. So videos is really important nowadays, especially in China. So the Chinese audiences love their videos, but remember that YouTube is completely banned. So you need to use our Chinese platform for any videos uploading and showing as well. So there are several different Chinese video platforms like Bilibili, Youku. Uh, Bilibili is probably more for consumers, is more for mobile devices because people often post their own creative videos on Bilibili. It's a bit like Nico Nico Video in Japan if you ever used it. Youku is probably the platform that most company will want to choose. Youku is also owned by Tencent, like the WeChat and Weibo. And WeChat, you will need a Chinese registration to get the Youku account. But often this can be your Chinese distributor or in-market partners, so a lot easier than getting a WeChat account. So the Chinese are not so good at other language like English. So it's really important that you have the video dubbed or at least with subtitles. It's not as hard as first sound. It's really worth the investment as Chinese respond really well to videos and the engagement is star. So our recommendation is to add video to your Chinese website when possible. And then I would like to give you a few tips about Chinese website and how to make sure that they have a very good local user experience. So first of all, make sure you're using the right Chinese. So Chinese come into different forms and different language. Cantonese is used for like Hong Kong and Guangdong provinces, while Putonghua, which is the Chinese official name of Mandarin, is for the mainland China and forms the base of simplified Chinese. So simplified Chinese is what most companies use for their website. Then the styling is very important, not just for the look, but also for readability. So with Chinese characters, even for simplified Chinese, it gets really hard to read, especially on a mobile devices. If you don't choose the right font and sizes, that is also why most of the website don't use bold. The character can get very important to read sometimes if it's in bold. So it's really it's better to use colors to differentiate different themes and different words that you want to highlight. So certain colors are traditionally favored by the Chinese audiences, like for example, like the red color, which means like celebration and happiness. And QR codes as well. QR codes are very important as the Chinese internet users are used to using QR code, especially on their mobiles to pay for a coffee or even pay their bill. So, so since Chinese characters are often shorter than English sentence, it's really important to test your layout and format once you translate them from English to Chinese. To make sure the catchphrase is on one line, not broken into different lines, because it can get really hard to read. Chinese websites tend to be more crowded and image heavy, more so than most of the American website. So it's really important to choose the right image for your Chinese website, the one that your Chinese prospect find most relevant. As the example in the right side, that is a page for the Taobao. As you can see, that is for pictures. Finally, getting back to Baidu. So when you launch a website in China, Baidu has to review it and approve it. For example, if there are links back to your US website, Baidu may not approve your ad proposal. So this is just a reminder that Chinese internet environment is very China-centric and specific. So now pass it back to Susanna and look at the some of the online strategies company have used to grow their business in China.
Thanks, Fiona. It was great. A whirlwind tour of social media and brand awareness in China via Weibo, Baidu, and eventually WeChat. We wanted to talk very briefly about sort of some of the major strategies that we've seen used successfully. Really to try and summarize that, then our recommendation, what we've seen for clients, is first to build a localized Chinese website in China and to have that springboard that you can then use to build the brand awareness via the Baidu advertising, via Weibo, and eventually via WeChat as well. So, starting off with Baidu search engine marketing, then social media starting with Weibo, and eventually a WeChat account. The point about this really is to build your own brand awareness. As we said earlier, I mean, the internet is a competitive and difficult place everywhere in the world. And in China, absolutely, that's certainly the case where people are, where the Chinese are very plugged in, very dynamic, and very reactive to that. Having a Chinese localized website allows you as well to confirm your commitment to the market and your long-term engagement in the market, and that's really important for the market and for retaining, for finding and retaining the best in-market partners as well. For that. So that's clearly key, and we'll show you an example of that. Just listing on one slide what it means to have a localized website in China. We sort of list these 10 criteria here of how to build a website that's localized in China. So obviously it's optimized with Baidu in mind and accredited by Baidu. For registering a domain name, you need an ICP filing with a business license. Obviously mobile enabled, and things. Hosted locally, that's very important for Baidu as well. Otherwise, it won't accredit you. A couple of examples that we can give you here, and this is a company who AST, they have agents throughout China, and it was only they had some difficulties breaking into the Chinese market in any serious way, and it was only really when they got the Chinese website that their agents were able to really expand on the technology they were using, really show off and showcase and highlight the products to the prospective buyers. And then the prospective buyers were like, at long last, I really believe that you're going to commit to this market and that you're going to understand this market. And there's a lot of competitors. Why should we choose you? Well, okay, you're going to commit to our market. In that case, through this website. In that case, let's do business together. So there was a really fast return on investment on the Chinese websites in particular. For this company. If you want to hear more of those, we have all these testimonials and case studies on our website, and you can listen to the video of the CEO, the managing director, actually talking to Hugo Fortes, talking about that experience. I wanted to highlight this company as well. It's a company called Farkla. It's actually a UK company. I think now owned by a French company, but their Chinese presence was really, really important for them for two reasons. They wanted to make sure, well, I guess three reasons. One is to drive leads to their local distributors and to generate leads to their local distributors. But it was really important for them to make sure that there was this notion to fight this notion of counterfeit products, and to have not just brand development, but the recognition that this was not a counterfeit, that this was a genuine one. The notion of counterfeit is very strong in China, so that the website was able to do that. And with that, the end goal also was to try and get some sort of control on pricing. Because if you're the authentic product as well, you can then say, that is the pricing that's fair. So you're not being driven ever further downstream, as it were. So there was some ability to hold the pricing firmer in that way. And again, just using social media, in this case a WeChat account, to drive brand awareness and to explain and get their message out to Chinese, in this case consumers, but also end users, garages and things like that. So this is just a screenshot from their WeChat account. And again, if you want to hear more, go to our website and you can hear from the company talking individually. We wanted then to also just highlight some of the ways that we found can help exporters. We've designed some programs. They're called the Online Global programs, and they're basically to help mid-cap companies in the United States to expand their markets internationally and to generate leads and do business internationally. And we've developed those Online Global programs, particularly with a lot of different US states in mind. There's a map on the left-hand side of all the states that are involved in that. And these are programs that we hope will help you. And there's some grant money that goes behind them. It varies a little bit from state to state, but in essence, what we've designed is sort of an option A, which is sort of a smaller one of it. An option A is 2 markets anywhere in the world, for example, China and Saudi Arabia, China, Mexico, whatever it is. And for that, we'll build you 2 localized websites. They're quite specific. They're specifically designed, how many pages, how many words that means, but you will have strong localized websites, for example, for China, with an option A. The cost is about $12,000, but STEP grants are available. I'm sorry, I'm not sure why it says Alabama on that. Apologies. STEP grants are available for companies in many markets, in many US states. And the step grants, are typically something like that pay for about half of that. So the step grants about $6,000 for those for their option A. Option B is basically when option A doesn't fit. So option B can be, for example, you want a total website redesign, a totally new and large website, an e-commerce website, or a large website for your China market. And again, there are step grants available for that, depending on which state it is. But the grants are typically something in the region anywhere between $6,000 and $10,000 grant set against that. I'll tell you what, before we get on to the other options, I'm going to give you a quick poll. Would anybody be interested in learning more about the option A or option B? In other words, localized websites and those online global programs. If you'd like to learn more about them, about which states have them, where they are, what the grants are, and so on, let us know, and we can send you more information on that. If you have an interest in that, and we're very happy to send that. So if you'd like to learn more about localized websites and those online global programs, either for option A or option B, let us know. Just to let you know, there's an awful lot of you who'd like to know more about that. You can also ask us in the question time at the Q&A, but thank you very, very much for that enthusiastic response. We'll be circling back to you in due course. So thank you for that enthusiastic response. I'll close the poll and talk a bit about option C, which has to do with online marketing. So again, there are grants for this available, and we've sort of designed a platform that you can use for markets, for example, for the China market. And as I said, there are grants. And I guess I'm going to launch a similar poll for this one as well. So if you have an interest in online marketing and the online global programs that go with it, please let us know. And we'll, again, circle back to you about that, whether it's about search engine marketing, social media marketing, and the reporting and analytics that go with it, obviously, and whether that's for China or for other markets. Again, thank you very, very much for voting and for being so enthusiastic on that one. I'm going to close that poll. Thank you very much. And just talk you through very quickly the final option, which is the one that we've highlighted here on option E for e-commerce. So those would be, again, designing a helping hand for you to show you sort of, a way to get e-commerce B2B or B2C e-commerce websites for your international markets. For example, for China, how that would be, the price very much depends on the level of SKUs you have. But if you have an interest in that, I tell you what, I'm going to ask that question as well. Here we go. I'll launch that poll as well then. So if you have an interest in that, you can let us know, and we'll get back to you about that. If you have an interest in the e-commerce in particular for that. And again, I would really, really like to thank you all for that enthusiastic response. We are delighted to be able to help you with e-commerce or any of the other programs. So I'm going to close that poll as well. And moving on, I guess in conclusion, we really wanted to sort of highlight, the online world today is obviously more relevant than ever. We're all using online tools in this weird way of this new online normal, using online technology and more sophisticated technology to reach out. And at the same time, we're sort of zooming into each other's homes. So there's the strange juxtaposition of it all. But the online world, in fact, embrace it. If you're a company, that's actually good news. The good news is that you know where your prospects are, where your existing clients are, your future employees, your future distributors, your future suppliers, they're all online. And you know how you can reach them? You can reach them through online tools. So that's, I think, one of the big takeaway, whether that's for China or for other markets. You can use online tools to get found, be understood, and be easy to do business with for that. So use your localized websites and localized online marketing. There is an infographic, which is sort of a China infographic attached to this webinar, and you should be able to reach it on the handout section of your webinar, of the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen, and you just drag it and drop it and pull it in, as it were. Finally, just before we get on to questions, and I can see there's quite a few questions coming up, we have quite a few webinars coming up. We're going to be talking about social media marketing. We're going to talk about online in Europe, and then there's a bunch of individual state webinars coming up as well this month. So we do look forward to seeing you all there for those as well. Then let's get on to questions. There are quite a few questions. Thank you very, very much for that. Fiona, I'm going to throw the first one to you, Fiona. So Fiona, you mentioned that it was important to analyze your website and your social media performances. What are the best tools to use for this in China? So what are the best tools to use to analyze and optimize your website and social media in China, Fiona?
Well, thanks for the question. Actually, that is one of the questions that so many clients that have asked me before. There are so many tools that you can use to analyze the website performance and, of course, the social media performance as well. But it's really worth to know that actually the tools that you use for your US site can be used for the Chinese website as well. So something like the Google Analytics, Moz, Get Clicky, those kind of tools are completely fine to be used to analyze the Chinese website performance and the social media performance as well. But if you can read Simplified Chinese, which is really good, of course the already built-in analytic tools are way better to be used, because sometimes the Google Analytics can filter out certain traffic or acquisition or channels. Just like Baidu, they will have a proper, more like in-time keywords, the kind of analytic tools that you can use on their own platform. But of course, everything are in Simplified Chinese. So if you can hire people who can read Simplified Chinese, or you can have an agency who can read Simplified Chinese, that is a better way of analyzing the performance from Chinese website and social media as well.
Thank you, Fiona. I think there were quite a few other questions on that one as well, so that was well answered. I'm going to take the next one, which is just how much does an ICP filing cost? ICP filing, remember, is the way of getting a Chinese registration for your Baidu, for your website. And the simple answer is it doesn't cost anything. It's free, but it takes a lot of time. And it takes some energy, it takes time filling out a lot of paperwork and admin. It generally takes about 3 weeks, 21 days to get the application. So it's not too bad, but just a lot of preparation, a lot of paperwork to go through, but it is free. Fiona, the next question I think for you is again about language and the dialects. So Fiona, there's a lot of, do I have to have several websites in China, or just one? Common language of Mandarin, but what language should I use? Fiona?
So there are so many language, and especially for dialect, there's like 100 dialects there in the Chinese umbrella. So, but the standard common language is Mandarin, which is Putonghua in their own official name. So the common language is Mandarin, but the standardized word they use is Simplified Chinese. So you can only just have one website in Simplified Chinese, and targeting like 1.4 billion audience there is actually a very good investment. So just one website is completely enough.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. I like that. So one website to rule them all. We've got quite a few questions, but our time is sort of up. I wanted to thank Fiona especially for joining me today to talk about China Online. We hope we've given you some information. We hope it's useful for you as you navigate this new normal. There are questions we haven't answered. We will email you directly on some of the answers. And if you've asked us, we will get in touch with you with regards to those online global programs. There is a little survey at the end. It takes 1 minute. If you'd like to, that would be great for us as well. Thank you all so much for attending, for being with us today. Talk about online in China. And again, thank you, Fiona, for joining me today. Happy exporting, happy business. Stay safe, stay well, and look forward to seeing you on the next webinar, if not in person. That'd be nice too. Take care. Be well. Thank you.
Bye.